everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you are new around here, my name is Olivia and I'm a 4th year medical student, which sounds just silly to even say because I don't know where the time has gone. Now a lot of you will be starting medical school in the next few months, and so I thought it would be helpful to make a video detailing what that transition from A-levels to medical school might look like for you. I wanted to give you guys as many tips as I could because obviously starting university anyway is a bit unsettling, it's a huge change, and you know, starting medical school is even more challenging. So I really wanted to tell you guys about the things I wish I'd known when I started medical school. And also, if any of you who are watching are current medical students, do comment down below and let our new students know your top tips for starting medical school too. Okay, my first tip for when you start medical school is explore the support options that are available to you. Now, I know this sounds a bit like I'm your mum right now and I'm nagging you, but it is so imperative. Starting university is very stressful at times. You sometimes encounter some bumps along the road that you don't anticipate, and sometimes you'll really struggle academically. You may struggle with your mental health, with your physical health. I don't mean to start on a downer, but it is so important to look after yourself. And the beauty of being a medical student is you actually have so much support available to you. So you'll be assigned to a personal tutor when you start university, and this is someone who oversees, you know, how you're getting on each academic year. And also, it goes without saying, it's really important to visit your GP if there's anything that's concerning you. So do also make sure you sign up to the local GP when you move university, because that's not something that is automatically put in place for you. And when you get a freshers flu that you just can't shift, you'll be thanking me that you did. My next bit of advice is super important to take on board, and that is learn how to manage your time quickly and effectively. Now you might be thinking, you know, I'm pretty good with my time management, I did well in my A-levels, but the thing about university is no one chases you in the same way they do during your A-levels. No one will be saying, where is your homework? No one will even remind you that you have an exam coming up. You can do this in many different ways, obviously. Some people keep diaries and planners, but I literally just sync my timetable that I get at the start of each academic year to my iPhone, and then I make sure to add in anything I have going on, whether it's social outings or I've got deadlines. I always put deadlines in before I even start term, just so I know what the year's shaping up to look like, and then I just fill it in with whatever I've got going on, just so that I can keep on track with what I need to do. And I fill in things like blocks for revision, so especially around exam time, I really like to plan out my revision, and I want to make sure I'm covering every topic equally, so I just allocate amounts of time each day to get that done. And especially in your first few years, in your preclinical years, your timetable can get all over the place. There are so many lectures you're going to be needing to go to, so just make sure you have a really good, clear calendar. And then obviously when you progress onwards and you start placement, it's important to know what ward you need to be on, when you need to be there, and all of that stuff is going to be so accessible if you just write it down on your phone so it's within reach. POV, you've just been sent an extensive reading list of all the material you're going to need for starting university.
You chose books. I chose looks.
Now don't get me wrong, nothing beats the crisp pages of a real textbook. But my next tip is don't be afraid to explore options beyond a physical textbook. Now, this might sound controversial. You might have lecturers saying you need this book and you need this book and you need this anatomy book. You know, a lot of your lecturers will have learnt medicine a while back, and you know, that's what they had available to them. Obviously, if you love anatomy or physiology or something, you might really want a textbook just because they're very pretty. But the better alternative brings me on to the sponsor for today's video, Elsevier. Elsevier are a fantastic company that specialise in producing academic material specifically for scientific and medical studies. And one thing I learnt this year, which I wish I'd known in my first year, is that you have access to something called Clinical Key through your institution. On this platform, you will find so many of the textbooks that are required reading or textbooks that your university recommends you purchase, all online for free. And if I'd known so many of these were available in one simple space, I would have saved so much time. So you can have a browse on Clinical Key and see which ones you want to read, but the ones that I've been loving so far, which I've been looking at throughout my summer holidays because I'm about to start back at medical school, are ECGs Made Easy. This is a fantastic book if you're struggling in your cardiology block with how to interpret ECGs. And I've also been absolutely loving Netta's Clinical Anatomy. Netters is my go-to when it comes to anatomy, so I definitely recommend checking that out. It's really good to get a grip with your clinical anatomy because that's the stuff that's actually going to be relevant to when you're practicing as a doctor. Those are my book recommendations, but they have so many for you to explore, so make sure to check that out. And they also have some really helpful OSCE guides if you happen to have one in your first year or your second year. My next tip is to make sure you get stuck into exploring different societies and different activities clubs, sports clubs. The reason I say this is because it makes that transition from A-levels to university that much easier, because you will be surrounded by people who are like-minded, who have similar interests to you, and I really feel like that helped with overcoming homesickness for me, and it also was just a great way to explore something that's an area of interest. So definitely make sure you check out all those things in your first few weeks in your freshers fair and just get involved. My next tip is one that I sort of acknowledged from the start, but I never truly took on board what this meant until around my third year, so about last year of university. And that is, be prepared to change your studying style and know that that is going to be okay. Now, what I mean by this is when I was in A-levels, I was very good at taking comprehensive notes, reading them, highlighting them, creating some pretty posters, and just absorbing the information and then regurgitating that for my exams. And you know, with my exams, I had a wealth of past papers to work through, had all the mark schemes, I knew exactly what was expected of me. However, in medical school, this just doesn't work for a few reasons. Firstly, I found taking notes every single day was just so fatiguing, and secondly, at least in my medical school, we haven't got access to past papers and mark schemes like I had in my A-levels, and so that made revising for exams using that technique very difficult. So I actually am going to make a whole video about how my study process has evolved and how I study now. Now I'm a fourth year. But until then, I want to give you some of my favourite resources that I recommend you check out and just explore in your first few weeks of starting medical school. So one of the best resources that I made use of in my early years in medical school was Osmosis. And if you haven't heard of Osmosis, it's basically this online bank filled with videos which will help you with your medical school curriculum. So it takes really difficult concepts and it distills them down into these videos which are so watchable, they're interesting, the illustrations are beautiful, and they just really helped me understand concepts that I was really struggling with. And in particular, they have loads of videos on all the anatomy that you'll need to know, and they're just so helpful. I feel like moving away from writing notes and exploring these different resources has really kind of piqued my interest, and I find this way of learning so much more engaging. You can still write a few notes if you want to, but it just helps distill down that huge workload and content overload you're going to have in the first few years, and gives you the information that you really need to know and what is most likely to come up in your exams. So I really recommend exploring Osmosis. Another resource I really recommend you guys check out and start using in the early years is PassMed. This is something I only started using recently last year, but I wish I'd started in year one, and it's basically a huge online question bank, and they have preclinical questions if you're not quite at the clinical phase yet, so you can still use this question bank in year 1 and 2, and then as you go up through medical school, it has tons of clinical questions, and that will really simulate a lot of the questions that you get in your real exams, so it's so helpful. My main tip when it comes to revising in medical school is just make sure you're actively learning. Don't write notes and just expect to learn them. Try and apply your knowledge, test yourself with questions, make flashcards, all of that good stuff, because that is how you're going to know if you truly understand the content. And finally, I have one final tip for you, which is perhaps like a cautionary tale, but I just want you guys to know it because I feel like it can be really disheartening sometimes when you start medical school, and that is medicine may not be what you thought it was going to be in the first few years, and that's totally okay and that's totally normal. Now, what I mean by this is it's so normal when you're waiting to start medical school and you're transitioning from A-levels to be super excited about medicine and you can't wait to get onto the wards and you'll be, you know, learning how to save lives and all of this good stuff. But actually in your first year, you're often bombarded with content which you may even think, how is this even medicine? And all I have to say to you is you just need to get through those preclinical years. The content you learn becomes so much more clinically relevant relevant and, in my opinion, much more interesting. The good news is that once you get through the other side, once you've got through your preclinical exams, you don't usually have to revisit a lot of that content, and instead the emphasis shifts on identifying certain diseases, how we treat them, how we manage these patients, rather than regurgitating the Krebs cycle for the 1000th time. Having said that, you're going to have so many fantastic opportunities in your first year, whether you do dissection or prosection. You're going to be exposed to so many new things, so many new opportunities, so many new friends, and I really, really hope you guys have a great year. I hope this video helped you and it gave you my advice as to how to survive that transition from A-levels to med school. It really can be quite a big step up, and if you find it very unsettling, that is so normal, and please don't be too hard on yourself. Just make sure to look after yourself, and I hope you guys have an absolutely fantastic time. Thank you so much once again to Elsevier for sponsoring today's video. Make sure you explore Clinical Key so that you don't have to pay loads of money for different textbooks, and also make sure to check out resources such as Osmosis. It's a truly fantastic way to learn, and I really recommend you have a look at those videos early on. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you in another video very soon.